Mercedes is updating their entire lineup, it seems, with new facelift, and the latest is the GLS, the biggest SUV that they have. So we're gonna have a look at what's actually new in the normal and the AMG version. I'm gonna compare the front and the rear and also the interior. But before we do that, let's have a look at this Motor One article. I'm gonna link this down in the description if you want to go and check it out, to kind of see what is new on the inside and outside of the new GLS. So we have new paint choices, for example, a twilight blue metallic and manufacture alpine gray non-metallic, which I think this is, and I think it looks really, really good. It's almost like a flat gray color, and as I say, non-metallic, and I think that that's kind of trendy right now to have the non-metallic colors. And inside, the MBUX infotainment system receives new display choices. There are 3 graphic styles. You have classic, sport, and discreet. And there's also an off-road setting, which is interesting in a GLS, because I wonder how many people are actually gonna take their GLS off-road. But anyway, there is an off-road setting, and then within that setting, the screen shows the vehicle's tilt angles, compass, and the camera view from underneath the front bumper, which I have to say is pretty usable if you actually decide to go off-road. And the GLS 580 is also available with an optional off-road engineering package, which means that you don't only get the tech, you get some hardware added to the GLS. For example, a skid plate in the front and a 1.2-inch additional ground clearance. Pretty cool. So the powertrains are, I think these are the same as before the facelift, going from the GLS 450 with 375 horsepower from a 3-liter turbocharged inline-6 all the way up to the GLS 63, this beast with a 4-liter twin-turbo V8 and 603 ponies. So let's jump into Photoshop here and let's have a look at what's new in the facelift. So this is an interesting facelift because I feel like Mercedes actually focused more on the rear. Usually when manufacturers do a facelift of a car, it's usually heavily focused on the front end design. But you can see here that the front end looks pretty similar to the pre-facelift version. This is the facelift down here. We do have a new grille. I also think, I'm not sure, but it looks like, probably not, but it looks like the outline for the grille is a little change. It's a little bit changed in this area here. It feels like it goes in more. This angle is harder or sharper than it is in the new version. It feels more vertical, this line here. I could be wrong, could be just the angles of these two cars, but as you can see, we do have a new design in the grille, and I'm not sure I'm a fan of these static bars that we have in the front end of the GLS. It is a GLS, so it is a big one. It's supposed to be a little bit more architectural, but I don't know. These bars in the middle of the grille just don't seem to flow well with everything else, because we have curvatures going in the lower part here everywhere. We have curvatures in the headlights and curvatures in the outline of the grille, and then you have these horizontal bars kind of clashing a little bit with that. But looking at the headlight from the GLC Coupe, for example, they changed the entire headlight unit or assembly, but in this case, I don't think the headlight has been updated. However, they have updated the taillights, which we're gonna have a look at in just a second. The biggest changes here are the front grille graphics inside the grille and the lower bumper, which now it looks exactly like every other Mercedes. So they have a clear identity across the entire lineup. Now let's have a look at the rear end and then interior. Then we're gonna have a look at the GLS 63 and the changes there as well. So have a look at this rear end. It feels like, as I said, they put more effort into redesigning or facelift, rear lifting the rear end of the GLS. Here is the old one up here. Not a huge fan of this green color, by the way. And here is the brand new facelift. So we are losing these rectangles that we have in this triangle in the taillights, and instead we're getting 3 separate LEDs in the rear. I'm not sure which one of these I prefer. I kind of like this treatment. It feels a little bit more interesting than just having, you know, 3 LEDs in the taillight like we have here. And then the lower part is also changed. We have a new type of diffuser that's a little bit differently integrated in the bumper. In the old one, it was just straight, which I think suits a GLS. As I said, it's supposed to be more structural, horizontal and vertical lines for the big brother GLS. So I think that integration actually looks good on the GLS. But in the new one, we have a bit more smoother styling in the rear diffuser. So we have these things sticking up that we didn't have in the pre-facelift. Still looks good, but still brings it closer to the GLE and the GLC when it comes to styling. Kind of doesn't really separate it by having those horizontal and vertical lines that I think suits a big brother like this better. But one thing I do like, I'm not sure if this is a trim or a package or what have you, but we have a chrome trim piece going all around the window here, as you can see in the pre-facelift. But in the new one, looks like you can have this blacked out. I'm pretty sure you could have the old GLS blacked out with some sort of equivalent to Audi's shadow line in the GLS to black out all the chrome around the car. Definitely prefer this version, but I don't understand why they still have a chrome trim piece in the rear when they black out the window trim, but they keep the rear end chrome. It's kind of interesting. And also the tailpipes, I would like to have these blacked out too. I do like the wheel design. Mercedes doing some of the best wheel designs from factory right now. These are not too exciting, but they still look pretty good. So let's have a look at the interior here. Not a lot of changes in the interior. This is a very subtle facelift, both exterior and interior. I think they focused more on adding some new tech to the GLS. And as you can see, the pre-facelift looks very, very modern already with these dual screens, which I think looks pretty decently integrated in this dash, because we have this chamfer going around it and kind of housing it, and then we have the screen sitting inside of it, and we have some nice curvatures and radiuses in the corner, so it doesn't look very static. You kind of this radius kind of follows this radius here, and these radiuses of the air vents, so it has some sort of connection to the rest of the interior. Looking at the new one big change that I love about the new interior is the steering wheel. So now we have in the GLS, the normal one, we have a flat bottom 3-spoke steering wheel. So I guess this is not only a flat bottom steering wheel is not only now for sporty cars, since we have it in the GLS, but I'm not complaining. I think it looks really good, and I love the new steering wheel designs of Mercedes. Mercedes are doing all kinds of wheels really well right now. They're doing the wheels that we have on the tires, and they're doing the steering wheels in a very, very cool way as well. So we have these simple spokes, which I like, and looks very much like other Mercedes steering wheels across the lineup. I think they're trying to really narrow down their styling and have all models follow a pretty tight set of rules when it comes to styling. I think they're doing a great job of that. I really like this interior, even though we have a big dual screen gauge cluster and infotainment screen here. It still, as I said, it still feels pretty well integrated, and that's all I'm asking for. I would still prefer to have a separate gauge cluster with a housing for it, because this is gonna, as soon as there's sun out and you have this big panoramic sunroof, the contrast of the screens are going to look very faded, and it would just help to have it sit deep inside a beautifully styled house of a gauge cluster. So looking at the GLS 63 AMG, and I really can't see any difference in the front end, because we still have the Panamericana grille in both of these. We still have the same headlights as we have in the pre-facelift. Some new colors, yes, but even the wheels look like they're exactly the same, and I don't mind that, because I thought the old one, the pre-facelift, still looked very modern, and kind of this lower part bumper looks like a facelift. It kind of looks like the facelifted GLS that we have here, so it didn't really need to change a lot in the GLS 63 in the front. In the rear, though, we do have a couple of changes, basically the same changes that we have in the normal non-AMG GLS. I love this diffuser. So in the GLS, it did have, in the pre-facelift, it did have these curvatures that we have in the facelifted normal GLS. So I think they actually took this diffuser from the AMG pre-facelift and added that to the new GLS non-AMG, which is interesting approach. And you can see the taillights, same thing here, new designs on the taillights with these 3 LEDs. I don't know, let me know which one you prefer of these taillights. I think these look more stylized and more interesting, as I said before, than the very static looking 3 LEDs that we have in the new facelift. But I guess that's a trend that we're also going towards, to just simplify pretty much everything, both in the interior and the exterior and all the graphics all around the car. So it's kind of in line with what's going on in the car industry world right now.